This is story number 3. Pippi plays tag with some policemen. Once upon a time, it soon became known throughout the little village that a 9-year-old girl was living all by herself in Villa Kula, and all the mummies and daddies and adults, men and women in the village thought that this was not on, it was no good. All the children must have somebody to tell them what to do, and all the children must go to school to learn the times table and how to read and write. So all the mummies and daddies decided that the little girl in Villa Kula must be put into a children's home at once. One lovely afternoon, Pippi had invited Tommy and Annika over for the afternoon coffee and pepperkakor. She had spread the party out on the front steps. It was so sunny and beautiful there, and the air was filled with the smell of the flowers in Pippi's garden. And Mr. Nielsen climbed around on the porch railing, and every now and then, the horse stuck its head out so that he'd be invited to have a cookie. "Oh, isn't this glorious to be alive?" said Pippi, stretching out her legs as far as she could reach. Just at that moment, 2 police officers in full uniform came in through the gate. "Hooray!" said Pippi. "This must be my lucky day too. Policemen are the very best things I know. Next to rhubarb pudding and strawberries." And with her face beaming, she went to meet them. "Is this the girl who's moved into Villa Kula?" asked one of the policemen. "Quite the contrary. Not at all," said Pippi. "This is a tiny little ant who lives on the 3rd floor at the other side of town." She said that only because she wanted to have a little fun with the policemen, but they didn't think it was funny at all. They said she shouldn't be such a cheeky bugger. And then they went on to tell her that some nice people in the town were arranging for her to get into a children's home. That's where all the children without mummies and daddies spend their time. "I already have a place in a children's home," said Pippi. "What?" asked one of the policemen. "Has it been arranged already then? What children's home?" "This one," said Pippi. "I am a child and this is my home. Therefore it is a children's home. I have a room enough here, plenty of room." "Dear child," said the policeman, smiling, "you don't understand. You must get into a real children's home and have someone look after you." "Am I allowed to bring my horse to your children's home?" asked Pippi. "No, of course not," said the policeman. "That's what I thought," said Pippi sadly. "Well, what about monkeys?" "Of course not. You ought to realize that." "Well then," said Pippi, "you'll have to get kids for your children's home somewhere else. I certainly don't want to move there." "But you don't understand that you must go to school." "Why?" "To learn things, of course." "What sort of things?" asked Pippi. "All sorts," said the policeman. "Lots of useful things and multiplication tables and the like." "I have got along fine without any of that tables for 9 years," said Pippi. "And I guess I'll get along with it from now on too." "Yes, but just think how embarrassing it'll be for you to be so ignorant. Imagine when you grow up and somebody asks you what the capital of Portugal is and you can't answer." "Oh, I can answer all right," said Pippi. "I'll answer it like this. If you are so bound and determined to find out what the capital of Portugal is, then for goodness sakes, write directly to Portugal and ask." "Yes, but don't you think you would be sorry not to know it yourself?" "Oh, probably," said Pippi. "No doubt I should lie awake nights and wonder. What in the world is the capital of Portugal?" "But one can't be having fun all the time," she continued, bending over and standing on her hands for a change. "For that matter, I've been to Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, with my daddy. she added, and still standing upside down, for she could talk that way too. But then one of the policemen said that Pippi certainly didn't need to think that she could just do as she pleased. She must come to the children's home, and right now. She went up. He, the policeman, went up to her, took hold of her arm, but Pippi freed herself quickly, touched him lightly and said, "Tag." Before he could wink an eye, she had climbed up onto the porch railing, and from there onto the balcony above the porch. The policemen couldn't quite see themselves getting up the same way, and so they rushed into the house and up the stairs. But by the time they had reached the balcony, Pippi was halfway up the roof. She climbed up almost as if she were a little monkey herself. In a moment she was on the top of the chimney. Down on the balcony stood the two policemen scratching their heads, and on the lawn stood Tommy and Annika staring at Pippi. "Isn't it fun to play tag?" cried Pippi. "And weren't you nice to come over here, policeman? It was certainly my lucky day too." After the policeman had stood there a while, wondering what to do, they went and got a ladder, leaned it against one of the house walls, and then climbed up, first one policeman and then the other, to get Pippi down. They looked a little scared when they climbed out onto the roof, and carefully balancing themselves, they went step by step towards Pippi. "Don't be scared," cried Pippi. "There's nothing to be afraid of, it's just fun." When the policemen were a few steps away from Pippi, down she jumped from the chimney, and screeching and laughing ran across the roof to the opposite side. A few feet from the house stood a tree. "Now I'm going to dive," she cried, and jumped right down into the green crown of the tree, caught hold of its branches, swung back and forth a while, and then let herself fall to the ground. Quick as a wing, she dashed around to the other side of the house and took away the ladder. The policemen had looked a little foolish when Pippi jumped, but they looked even more silly when they had to balance themselves backwards along the roof and were about to climb down the ladder. At first they were very angry at Pippi, who stood on the ground looking up, and they told her in no uncertain terms to get that ladder and quick about it, or she would soon get something she wasn't looking forward to. "Why are you so angry at me?" asked Pippi. "We're just playing, aren't we?" The policeman thought a while, and at last one of them said, "Oh, come on, won't you be a good girl and put the ladder back against the wall so we can get down?" "Of course I will," said Pippi, and put the ladder back. "And when you get down, we can all have a drink of coffee and have a happy time." But the policeman was certainly tricky, because the minute they were down on the ground again, they pounced on Pippi and cried, "Now you'll get it, you little brat." "Oh, no, I'm sorry. I haven't time to play any longer," said Pippi, but it was fun. Then she took hold of the policemen by their belts and carried them down the garden path, out through the gate and onto the street. There she set them down, and it was quite some time before they were ready to get up again. "Wait a minute," she cried, and ran to the kitchen and came back with 2 cookie hearts. "Would you like a taste of these cookie hearts?" she asked. "It doesn't matter that they're a little burned, does it?" Then she went back to Tommy and Annika, who stood there, wide-eyed, and just couldn't get over what they'd seen. And the policeman hurried back to the town and told all the men and women and mums and dads that Pippi wasn't quite fit for a children's home. They didn't tell her that they'd been up on the roof, and the mums and daddies decided that it would be best for all to let Pippi stay in Villa Kulla, and if she wanted to go to school, she could make her own arrangements. But Pippi and Tommy and Annika had a very pleasant afternoon. They went back to their uninterrupted coffee party. Pippi ate 14 cookies and then said, "They weren't what I mean by real police. No, siree. Although too much talk about children's home and all that kind of stuff." Afterwards she lifted the horse down on the ground, and they rode on him, all 3. At first Annika was afraid and didn't want to, but when she saw the fun Tommy and Pippi were having, she let Pippi lift her up on the horse's back. The horse trotted around and around the garden, and Tommy sang, "Here come the Swedes with a clang and a bang." When Tommy and Annika had gone to bed that night, Tommy said, "Annika, don't you think it's good that Pippi moved here?" "Oh, yes," said Annika. "I don't even remember when we used to play before she came, do you?" "Oh, sure, we played tennis and things like that," said Annika. "But it's a lot more fun with Pippi around, I think, and with horses and things." The end.